Another question I get all the time is about mixing and matching different strobes. Can you mix speedlights? Can you mix strobes? Can you mix? Yeah, absolutely. You can totally mix and match things. It is not about the type of light, it's about how you use it. Light is light. It's about how you modify it and how you understand it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use 2 speedlights, and then I'm going to add in an expensive studio strobe, but that studio strobe is actually going to be kind of an extra. So even if you start with a couple inexpensive pieces of gear and then you add on and you get something else, you can use this entire kit together. So don't feel like you always have to start again from the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and I want something a little bit more like how I usually shoot for my own beauty work. I want a harder light on her face, something that's a little more dramatic and focused. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to light her face with a grid. I have a grid here, and it's pointed at the center of her face. Again, downsides of using the speed light for this instance is because it's really hard to see. But if I hit my depth of field preview button, it flashes so I can see where the light's hitting. So it works out. Let me take a shot of this, okay? And so I have this actually set to manual this time because I'm using many lights together, and so I'm going to control each of them manually instead of using TTL. Let's see. All right. Oh, it's so pretty. Okay. So I've got that hard light grid on her face, and so the light you only see from the top of her head to just below her neck. And so it's beautiful, sculpted light. The problem is she's just kind of a floating head now, right? There's no context, there's no separation. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add the background light. I want to make sure she's not blending into the background. And so I've got a 20-degree grid. This is a wider grid. And so it'll give me a little bit more spread of light on the background. Now I have this set to an optical slave. Basically what it means is when this light fires, as soon as it sees a pulse, it will also fire. So it's not like I have a special trigger or anything. So but these two things are not talking to each other. I cannot control the power of that strobe from this trigger. So I'm not really mixing and matching. I'm just setting it manually, and then I can set them to whatever I need them to be. So in this case, because my speed lights are less powerful, they have less power output, I'm starting with my 500 watt second strobe at its lowest power, because I already know even at its lowest power, it's got a lot of oomph to it, a lot of light. So let me take a test. Okay, good. And so perhaps at 4, where I have it, it could use some more. Like I see a little bit of separation, but I want to see more. So I'm going to actually pump up this 2 stops. Okay, I'm going to pull it back just a bit, sorry. And I'm going to aim it a little bit higher. All right, so now let me test it. 2 full stops brighter. Okay, so it is a lot brighter. I'm actually turn it down a half stop. It's just a little distracting. All right, so turned it down a half stop. Okay, so now I've got some separation behind her neck. If I want to go higher up, I can change the angle of that grid to separate her hair. If I want more spread on the background, that's a 20, right? That's a 20, so that's the most spread I have. If I wanted to spread out more, I'd have to shift this whole set forward, but I only got 9 feet. So I'm going to keep it where it is. If I needed to, I could probably move 1 more foot before I was in too tight of a space. That's also why I'm using my zoom lens, because I can vary the focal length and change the zoom so I can get the framing that I want. All right, so let me take 1 more of those. All right, so that looks good. But now, problem is, this hair is gorgeous and it's being lost. I'm only seeing just a little bit in the front. I don't want to lose the hair, and also I'm losing the detail of her chest and her dress. I don't want that to disappear either. So this is where I would add a fill light. Because both of these lights are grids, the light isn't going to bounce anywhere. They're super focused. So even in a small space with all these white walls, the light didn't spread out enough to fill in the shadows. So actually, I'm going to have to add a fill light. Even if I added a reflector, it wouldn't be enough. Not enough light bouncing around. So that's what my third light is, and I'm going to add a speed light again. And so this speed light is on a small umbrella, white umbrella with diffusion. And so the whole point of that is it's just going to give me soft light that bounces around. I could also use a shoot-through umbrella. And I just want to make sure I have some light to the shadows. I placed it on the right-hand side so it would rake across her body a bit in the same direction as the main light. so that it's more of a motivated lighting. So the shadows won't cross. Instead, the shadows will go the same direction. So you'll see this glow of light on the face and then the softer fill in the same direction. It tends to be more pleasing than having main light on one side and fill light from the other. Doesn't quite make as much sense. It'll be more of an invisible fill light, less obvious. All right, so I'm gonna start with this at, let's see, I'm gonna start with it at a little less than half the power of the main light. It'll still definitely be noticeable, but it won't be overpowering that grid. We'll start there. And again, I set it to manual. So I really like it. I think that maybe my fill light's a little bit bright, even at half the power, so one stop less. It's still quite noticeable. I might turn it down just a tiny bit, like a third of a stop. So I'm gonna change it right here for my trigger. Okay, third of a stop here. Okay, so I think it's a little bit more subtle, and in my opinion, it keeps the attention more where it should be on her face. I like that. I'm just gonna angle my grid now a little bit more to be behind her hair, and I think it's where I want it to be. So I'm just gonna angle this over and up. And I see a little bit of spill light on her arm. That's why it's really useful to have modeling lights, because if there was spill light from a speed light, I wouldn't see it. So I'm just gonna angle that. I could also put some foam core, some V-flat I could put here, or I could put a piece of cinefoil. So that cinefoil would block off the light from spreading. All right, so let's try right there. All right, let's see. Oh, beautiful. Perfect. Okay, so turn your shoulders a little further to the right. Good. And chin up to that, and keep your eyes kind of right around here. Perfect. I need you to pull your hand back just a little bit, and then let's put a hand up to your chest. Beautiful. And I'm shooting right now right around 60 millimeters, and this is like a ½ inch outside of my frame. It's just about in my frame, but I'm placing things very carefully. If I needed a wider shot, I would have to change it. I could mount it a different way, but this actually works great. Beautiful. Okay, cool. And I'm gonna move in tighter. Can you pull your right arm back? Beautiful. And lean forward just a bit. And then look right at me. Good. Let me see how that light looks. Beautiful. And I think I'm gonna do one more with you. Scoot back just a little bit. I'm gonna go for super long neck, so I'll just have you lean forward. But the whole time I know that a grid only gives me like this much area of light. So I gotta make sure her face lines up with that grid. Okay, is that good? And chin towards me a little. Okay. I'm getting down a low angle because it's a very powerful angle. And I'll look chin harder back towards the light. And chin down just a little. And then eyes up. Good. Beautiful. Perfect. I love it. So I'm absolutely mixing and matching. If I put an Alien B or an inexpensive studio strobe in here, I could absolutely use that as well. I could use that instead of this second speed light. And that I could use instead to fill it in. So when you're shooting in the studio, don't think that you have to have all of the same brand, all of the same type of lights, or that you have to set them from the same trigger. That's not true at all. You can set them all to be triggered and controlled manually from that light. And as long as you have something that talks to one of those lights to get it to fire, you can have all of the rest of them optically slave and fire. So don't feel like you need to buy one set of lights and that everything matches. Mix and match, build as you go, build up to the quality of lights you eventually wanted to have. But wherever you're starting, it can absolutely work together.